Welcome to Retraction. I'm your co-host, Antoine.
I'm your co-host, Jamie, and we are reversing course through discourse. Special thanks to our returning retractors and to our newcomers. Welcome, enjoy the show, and we hope you subscribe.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
What do you got, Antoine? What's going on?
All right, so you know what? I got personal stuff. I'm gonna try something different here. It's not gonna be overarching. It's not gonna be something about Trump going to jail or again railroads that crash near towns and then pollute their water riverways, and no one barely talks about it. I'm gonna go upbeat. We're gonna go upbeat right now.
You sound upbeat.
I'm trying to be upbeat. I got a lot going on. I'm trying to be upbeat.
I got a lot of personal stuff going on right now. I'm gonna be upbeat.
So I'm gonna speak through the through the wire. This Kanye. Well, no one references Kanye anymore, so I guess that's not gonna age well. But he did have a song called Through the Wire. So anyway, so I played the Diablo 4 beta.
I don't know what that is.
You don't know what that is. You don't know this. All right, Diablo is a game. It's an ARPG, isometric. So I believe that's like top-down action role-playing game. That's what ARPG stands for. And it's the fourth in the series. And the third wasn't as well received. I didn't really particularly enjoy it. But the fourth, I'm kind of coming around to it. And the reason I want to talk about it is because it has something outside of gaming. We're dads of young children, and for a time now, I was beginning to get really sad because gaming, not only is it very difficult to do gaming with young children, but the love, I don't feel like the wide-eyed enthusiasm that we had as children when it comes to video games. It felt like it was dying. It felt like the spark with every game I tried to play was getting a little dimmer.
The magic was dying?
Yeah.
The magic was dying in you.
Yeah, and I couldn't really pinpoint it. Well, one is that today's modern games, unlike when we were children, are chock full of things that get you to spend extra money. And as an old gamer, that's really off-putting. You're like, I already bought this thing. I don't want to be continually coerced into buying extras, little tidbits, little cosmetics here and there. It's like, I don't want it in my face. I just want to enjoy the simplicity of whatever it is, whether you're picking up some guns and shooting something, battle passes, DLC, all these different things. I know we sound old when we talk about it, but I want a complete experience. I want to be left alone. I want to escape in the game that I'm playing, let the magic of that game carry me away, not be reminded about how much money I have or don't have, because every minute they're like, well, if you buy this game experience will get that much better. And
Doesn't that kind of take you out of it too?
That's what I'm trying to say.
Is that like breaking the fourth wall?
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Exactly what's going on here. We got bills to pay. We got kids to raise. I don't want to continually think, oh, well, what can I, if I spend this $20 now, what am I taking away from my child?
Well, it's a commercial. It's like watching TV with commercials.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Except instead of, I don't know, I don't even watch regular TV anymore. We stream anything, but I don't know. What does a commercial come on? Like every 4 minutes, 5 minutes, or something?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Except it's just always here because let's say you're playing a game that is online. Some other guy is off blowing his wad, buying everything in the item shop. He comes across your screen because these games are usually multiplayer or something. You're forced to look at this guy for basically the entirety of your play session.
Well, it's like
that's
maybe
the point.
You're watching Marvel. Yeah. Maybe you're watching like a Marvel movie and you're watching Iron Man. You're watching Iron Man in the Mark II, but then you can see your neighbor watching Iron Man or the person next to you on the couch watching Iron Man in the Mark 8, and you're like, hey,
yeah,
why can't I see the superheroes in the latest and greatest? Why do I have to watch them in their old stuff?
It's like going to a Best Buy to watch a movie and looking at all the different screens. You've got one screen, but you're looking, and then the screen next to you is an 8K, high definition, whatever, HDR 25. You're like, what the hell? I want to watch this in 8K and HDR25. Why? It's making my experience less than because
I got another one for you.
Yeah,
it's like you watching Fast and Furious and Dom's in a 4-cylinder.
That took a lot for you. You hate that series, but good.
I know I do. I did it for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the love. You'll get there one day. You'll understand the magic that is that series.
But, it is the family. Yeah.
Marvel took it from them. I think before there's Thanos, there was Dom. He's the good guy, but I'm just saying sometimes. But anyway, we won't get into that. So anyway, I'm doing this beta, and look, there's going to be they're going to monetize this game. Okay, that's just what I'm going to get at. When the full game comes out, they're going to monetize it, and I'm going to be right back where I am currently, which is complaining about how every 10 seconds I'm asked to buy something. But when you're playing a beta, the game's unfinished, so the monetization is completely out of it. So I'm sitting there just enjoying a game like it was the old days. There's no incentive to buy anything. There's nothing that I feel like.
Does that mean there's not all the levels? Like you're going to play, you're only going to get
there's
to level 3 and then it's over or something?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, but the point, and it's a finite experience. There's only so much I can really get done in this. I loved it. That's what I'm saying. I was like, why does this feel so good? And it feels good because I didn't think about my wallet once during the entire time I was playing this game.
So this goes back to you and your newspapers and you wanting to pay for social media.
Yeah.
Would you say, all right, I could pay $50 and then suffer the upgrades, or I will pay $100 or $200 for this game and I get it all straight up front and you don't bother me anymore?
Yeah, I would do that. But at that, I mean, here's the theory.
I don't know how much games are right now, so I don't know if my pricing is off.
They're basically $100 to get everything. But the thing is, these video game companies know that they can make so much more by upselling people every single day as opposed to letting you do a finite price. But I would love that. I would absolutely love to say, if I buy this outright, you leave me alone. Anything you add to the game is either free or you just or nothing. I just don't see it. I don't see anything that someone else could have purchased in this game. I just get the vanilla experience and I'm left alone, but I'm allowed to play with basically any of the game mechanics. Like, you're not taking out any game mechanics because I paid the money for the base game. But yeah, you just leave me alone. If I want to buy DLC is one thing. I'm not as big. DLC is fine, in my opinion, as long as it doesn't look like it was taken out of the core experience of the game. So it's basically added back in to make the game playable, which can happen sometimes. But yeah, that's exactly right. I'd love to just pay the price up front and be left alone, because it just felt very calming. I was like, the magic of this game. Plus, I do think that they've done a great job. Blizzard is the publisher or the game company behind this game, and I was like, they did a good job with the story, so that helped. But overall, I was sort of like, as an aged gamer, this is the first time in a long time where I felt like I really enjoyed myself. And I didn't feel like, oh, I'm just too old. Maybe it's just time to put the joysticks down, get a real man's hobby, start working on cars. Yeah. Clear out my garage, get an old beat up car.
That's something just pick
run.
Up. When you're halfway through your life, I'm going to start fixing up cars.
I mean, I think it's either that or I get a compound bow, I guess, and just start going hunting deer or something. I don't know what real men do, but this city slicker, this beta male, I was like, is it time to hang up the joysticks? And but maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. Maybe there is still a game out there for me that I can hunker down with and get some release, So
Antoine needs a new name. The nothing is destroying Fantasia for him.
It's like, you ever see the movie Legend?
Who's in? What is that?
Tom Cruise. It's one of my favorites. It's Tom Cruise. It's a young Tom Cruise. He might be like 19 or something. I think it's before Risky
Legend. Business. I don't know.
Yeah,
what's that about? Oh wait, no, that is a fantasy. Right?
It's a fantasy one, yeah.
Oh man. Oh, dude, I don't remember that. I know that movie.
Right.
Wow, it's a long time ago.
Yeah,
I usually remember movies. I don't know if I've seen that enough to remember when I was that young.
Well, there's a scene in there where it's all about this last unicorn, and essentially there's a girl protagonist who touches the unicorn, and by touching it, she taints it, so it's no longer beautiful and impervious. It is now it's tainted and catchable. So without going into the long plot, I think anyone, if you could find it, it is amazing to see a young Tom Cruise in a fantasy epic, especially an 80s fantasy epic, which are quite dark.
Yeah.
I don't know why for children everything was dark and sinister, but it's real dark. But yeah, that I feel like it's like the end of it. It's like the unicorn is saved. Like I thought my unicorn, which is gaming, had been tainted. I'm wrapping it back around so everyone knows where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
I was like, my unicorn is gone. It's dirty. It's sullied. I'm never going to get it back. And then look at this. Behold, I play a beta, which I kind of had to pre-order the game to get into. So I will. So it's not like it was free, but I'm just saying it took me back, and I felt very enjoyed. I was like, I feel happy with this. It was
is there like a market
experience?
Is there a marketplace where people can trade their upgrades?
Your gaming upgrades?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
They tried that stuff with NFTs. That didn't really work out that well.
Oh, well, like, so if you buy something, but then, like you said, you saw someone come across, could you barter with them to trade?
That was the whole idea of adding NFTs into games was is that you, let's say, again, let's use the compound bow. Let's say it's some sort of shooter, and there's a special compound bow with like Trump's fake signature on it. Not fake, but like his digital signature on it. I don't know why I went there. And
neither do I.
I'm just saying, in the real world, I'm just saying it's an item, it's an in-game item. It's in the real world, it's valued at $200. Someone buys it for $200. They're using it in the game. You see it.
Antoine can't live without it.
That's exactly what's supposed to happen.
But he doesn't have enough money. He doesn't have enough money.
That's right. I ping the guy and I go, "Whoa, that's a really cool bow. How much?" And he goes, $300. And I say, "Oh, okay. So either I buy it for $300 or the guy just keeps the bow, I suppose." The problem with in-game NFTs, and this is what the NFT community found out, was that games die, and you've coded something specific to a game that may or may not live forever. And transferring that asset, that bow that was made for the game that existed today, into its sequel or whatever iteration of the game 10 years from now is not something game developers are quite keen on.
Mm-hmm.
So that $200 bow may have been purchased for $200, but when everyone realizes the sequel comes out and that bow is not going with it, that bow is now $0.
What's the difference between that and buying the upgrade from the gaming company?
Because the upgrade usually gives you something you can play now. I get what you're saying. I just think, but I get what you're saying. The upgrade is not. I'm trying to think.
I don't even mean buy it from someone else, but trade. You have something they want. You have a cool gun. They have a cool bow, and you trade.
Yeah, I guess you could trade. I mean, there's no incentive for gaming companies to do that because where's the money in it?
Yeah. I don't know.
There are some. I think like FIFA has some sort of weird. They take a cut. So it's like if you have like a special, FIFA gives out.
They're brokers.
Cards. They are, and it's crazy what you could do with that game. But you basically
like transaction fees.
There's a mode where you could open packs like the way we used to open baseball cards, and you could then say, "I don't want this card," and I'll give it to another player in the FIFA world, but I'll list it for a price, and that player can buy that card at that price. But then FIFA will charge you a percentage of the currency, in-game currency, for creating that deal and allowing you to use their auction house.
Wow.
So it's kind of, it's nuts. And you use real money, by the way, to get these cards. You can.
I mean, someone had to start this horrible trend. What was the first game to do this?
I think it's FIFA was the first one really to start the loot box thing, yeah. With this auction stuff. I think it was EA. Electronic Arts that started the whole thing. Yeah.
So they're to blame. They did it. They were successful. Other video game companies are like, wow, we could be 10x revenue if we only did this or whatever it is. Nice.
ExxonMobil could oil spill, I don't know, the Gulf of Mexico again or something, kill 1,000 ducks, and still EA will be voted most hated company in America, which I think it gets the most hated company in America. I think it had it for like 10 years running. Maybe it's lost it in the modern era, but definitely through oil spill times, EA was still the most hated company in America. So just to put the scale out there for what people
Wow.
think. So
All right.
that was
Well,
my little thing.
I
I
hope you
wanted
get
to
your
get that
magic
out
back.
there.
I
Yeah,
hope
I thought it was a nice little personal anecdote.
we'll tag Blizzard.
Sure, tag them. Say, hey, look, we like Diablo 4. Give us some free copies.
All right. You want me to do something?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Please do.
all right. Sort of related maybe to our last episode where we talked about the BBC censoring their 6th episode based on rewilding. There's another story, another nature story out of England. I thought this was actually interesting. It caught my eye. Everyone will live within a 15 minutes walk of green space or water in England. You heard
That's
this?
amazing. No, I never heard that. I don't even know how you begin such an engineering project, but that's really cool.
So in 2020, a government advisor for the natural environment, Natural England, found, quote, that people who live in neighborhoods with greater amounts of green infrastructure tend to be happier, healthier, and live longer lives than those who live in less green places. My knee-jerk reaction to that was, well, duh. But then I was like, I thought that was preference because I prefer green space. But you have a ton of people in the city. Now, as a former city dweller, Antoine, do people yearn for, do you love the city, but you yearn for a little more green space, or are you completely content and you don't miss it? Like, because that's a bold statement. I think
it depends on where you live in the city and how much privilege you have while living in the city. Do people yearn for green space in the city? Absolutely. There was a huge movement years ago to turn majority of the urban landscape rooftops into green gardens and green spaces. I don't know. I think it stalled out for whatever reason, but I believe there was some sort of tax incentive to either landlords or people who owned their rooftops to make them green spaces. So it's not like
I wonder what that does with like bugs. Do you get like more bugs? You have
as opposed to the rats that are all over the place, and the roaches.
I mean, I don't know.
I think whatever else you get is preferable. Let's be honest. So,
the ants will drive out the roaches.
I mean, that you'd be lucky if they had that kind of power. But yeah, I'm just saying that. And here's the other thing: the parks are always lauded in the city. That's why people congregate. You say, I don't have my own personal green space living in an apartment. So you spend your weekends at Prospect Park. You meet up your friends at Central Park. People love to congregate near the parks. It creates like a village atmosphere. So I get the desire for cities to create more spaces like that.
Well, that's good because I didn't want to assume, but so in general, it seems like humans connect with nature and everyone yearns for more
all
green
walks
space.
of life. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's cool. So the British government has plans for 25 new or enlarged national nature reserves. The plan also increases funding to protect wildlife like hedgehogs, and red squirrels, which, side note, the red squirrel thing is actually interesting because I guess gray squirrels are an invasive species, maybe from North America. I don't want to misspeak, but it's like driving out that population of red squirrels. Okay. So side note, if anyone's interested in reading that, they should.
Why is the ginger always on the cusp of extinction?
I'm not going to comment on that. I don't know.
It's a scientific fact. The recessive gene redheads are.
I'm not going to equate the red squirrel with red-haired humans. I have no idea because I don't know if that's related. I don't know.
It sounds like plausible.
I don't know if foxes are red, right? If foxes are red, that's an entire thing.
You're telling me that ginger squirrels in the UK are on the verge of extinction because they're being knocked out by gray squirrels. And I'm saying that's very similar to red-headed humans. They're becoming increasingly rare because the gene doesn't flow as easy as the gene for other types of hair color.
Listen, prove Antoine wrong, folks. I got nothing there.
That's all I'm saying. No,
he's going to throw theories out left and right. Yeah, he's just calling it like he sees it.
The conspiracy fits.
And that was Tinfoil Corner with Antoine. So the funds are also set to clean up air and water, reduce waste over the next 5 years in England. The thinking is shifting to a broader landscape scale where habitats need to be bigger and connected. And I think that connected part is kind of interesting because you could create bigger areas, but then to connect them so wildlife can move in between, and then therefore people could actually take longer treks. I think it's an interesting concept. And to, again, not so much focus on, well, does this neighborhood have a park? But to look at, take a couple step backs and look at the whole city, the whole region, and start planning parks on that grand scale. I think it's cool. To your point, I just don't know how doable it is. So the British Prime
Minister, you don't know what you have to dismantle in order to make it happen. Hopefully, it's not something that it could be like the High Line. That was the idea again behind the High Line in the city. I don't know if people are aware, but New York City had old above ground railroad tracks that were no longer in use and were basically in disrepair. And some sort of organization raised enough money to come in and say, we can plant tons of trees and make it basically walkways above the city that you could enter at the old train station destinations, and that's what created the High Line. So it could be something similar.
Super cool. Yeah, it's super cool, and that is one of the examples I think that they actually gave. So the British Prime Minister said protecting the environment was fundamental to the health, economy, and prosperity of the country. Great campaign slogan. The idea is not to halt, but reverse the decline of nature, which is steep. Between 1970 and 2018, key animals and plants have declined by 82% in England, which sounds super scary. So green space in the UK is defined as any land with vegetation like a playing field or an abandoned railway line. Estimations say that 20% of the people live further than 15 minutes away from their nearest public park. Not maybe surprising. The Black community in England are four times less likely than white to have access to outdoor space at home, whether it be a private or shared garden, patio, or balcony. So it's a pretty generous definition. So for it to be 4 times less likely is
wild. Yeah, similar. Yeah. Similar statistics in the U.S. So nothing different there.
Yeah, there seems to be a renewed interest in leaving England in a better state for future generations as the country sees a decline in biodiversity. Now, the blueprint to meet its legally binding targets in water quality, biodiversity, and waste, as well as international targets include, and so this is where it gets like super, super ambitious, creating and restoring at least 2,000 square miles of new wildlife habitats, ensuring everyone in England lives within a 15-minute walk of woodlands, wetlands, parks, and rivers, restoring 400 miles of England's rivers, new targets for 2028 for reducing plastic, glass, metal, paper, and food waste, and a promise to put environmental protection at the heart of all new government policy, which sounds kind of fluff, but we'll see. So the concerns, which is what you kind of got at right away, that have been raised around how people get this 15-minute walk access and how those routes and the green space itself would be created and protected in perpetuity is front and center. Farms, infrastructure, etc., will all be impacted and will likely need to be compensated. And I think that's the rub. So I'm really interested on how this plays out because you seemingly have legally binding targets, which I don't know what that means because I don't know what the penalties would be if you don't do it, right? Or a new administration. Yeah, all right. Like that was the last administration. That stinks.
Yeah. But then it's fodder for your opposition party to probably come at you for missing the deadlines. But I mean, yeah, it's probably the extent of the damage that could be done in public perception. But I mean,
you have these people who you have these farms.
Have the project police out there coming after.
But you have all this stuff already. There's stuff out there. The land belongs to someone, whether it's the route to get there or the land itself that you're trying to green up.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? Would you just pay these people off?
Yeah, but yes, actually, for some of it, yeah, that we've done that in the cities. Again, hopefully,
is it fair? Do you think the payments are fair?
Well, I think that. I mean,
I'm assuming some of these farms are like multi-generational farms that have been in their family for years. Does that matter?
Some people don't get compensated at all. I mean, I don't know if many Americans know this, but the government. I mean, there's something called eminent domain. If the government basically deems your plot of land is basically is so valuable to the government project, they could just simply take it without.
It could be for commerce. Like they could put like a Home Depot up, right?
Yeah, it could be for anything. That's absolutely right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So, so hopefully it's not like that. I'm sure the opposition. I'm sure there's definitely going to be issues. I mean, that's an incredibly ambitious plan. I do not understand how that's going to work in a city like London, for instance. So they definitely have to be generous with the way in which they are talking about implementation. Because I mean, you're not going to get a wetland in Chelsea. Like, I mean, how are you going to create a wetland in an urban area? So it's got. I mean, I'm saying it's got to be something that's of a smaller scale. Maybe like local parks or something like that. But
that's a bold statement. 15-minute walk for everyone.
I know that's what I'm saying. It's definitely going to come with taking down some existing infrastructure. I will say this though, the English have a long history of coveting green space. I mean, for instance, back in England's basically coal days, where the pollution was astronomical, the Victorian era still had all these different gated. They have like these gated gardens within the city limits for the wealthy, basically off of your brownstone or whatever they call those their housing.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
Yeah, it's the poor can't get in. So, but it was everyone who was wealthy was given a key to these essentially centralized gardens that were in the middle of whatever a cul-de-sac of wealthy people's homes. Gardening is huge in England as well. They like a whole. It's a whole hobby system essentially. Gardening is big. Like when I talk about gardening, is nothing like what we talk about in America. Gardening is huge in England. And also in Scotland, hiking is like a big pastime. I think they call it's something about like hiking the it's essentially hiking. There's like another word for it if you're hiking in the what do you call it? The Highlands, right? Scottish Highlands.
Highlander.
Sure, just like that. There could only be one hiker at a time. If there's two hikers down, if they're coming down the one path, one has to get decapitated. That's the Scottish rules. It's just the rules. There could only
be the breaks.
Yeah, but seriously, walking sticks. I mean, if you go to Scotland, you'll see old people, young people always hiking those. You'll always see someone moving in those mountains. So they're
outdoorsy. They're
outdoorsy. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. As a culture in general, outdoorsy. Historical culture. We'll say that.
That's interesting. So
it's not surprising.
You think so? Do you think it's a pipe dream?
No, I don't. I think that wealthier people or people who are here's what I'm saying. I think the poor people probably will get screwed as per usual, and well-to-do middle class or what have you will probably get these 15-minute walking areas by some means. But that's where I'm always skeptical. I'm skeptical of what is happening in the poorest areas.
Next, there will be a study: poor people walk 50% slower than rich people, and that's why they're not meeting that.
That's why they don't get to the 15 minutes. That's exactly right. Yeah.
What was interesting too when I read that was that, and I'm trying. I don't know the geography and the landscape of that island, but it says 28% of people live further than 15 minutes away. That sounds like an incredibly low number to me. Like the overwhelming majority of people live within a 15-minute walk of a park. And is that because it's so sparsely populated and that there's only a few city centers that would be the issue? And is that 28% just in the cities? Because that sounds low, right? 28%, only 28% of the population is impacted by this 15-minute rule.
Yeah. I don't really know how to quantify that. If you go to a town in England, most I would say most of the towns outside of the big city centers, you probably could walk to a park. I would definitely say that.
And so what I'm getting at is, am I looking at this through an American lens to say, holy cow, what an ambitious project, when really, for those folks in England, it's not actually that. It's a cool thing, but it's not that big of a deal. It wouldn't be like saying here, everyone's going to have access to a park within a 15-minute walk. Is it different? Is it that they're already set up for success? They just got, a quarter of the population now they need to take care of.
Yeah, I that might be it. Because again, I mean, their population can fit. I mean, the entirety of England can fit in New England in America.
Come on now.
I'm just saying we're a massive country. So that kind of ambition, even though in older years we used to have public works projects on that scale. But yeah, you're right. it's a no-go here. So it's probably because the culture is a little bit more homogenous in terms of like what is British, what is important British, like for British culture in general. And again, that number is so low, like you said, 28%. It seems doable at that rate. If you had something that was closer to 64% of the population can't get access to a park, you're probably in for a much longer haul. You're right. It's probably because the number is low enough. They think that they given enough time, they could probably address the issue for that quarter of the population. A quarter of the population can't get there within 15 minutes. It's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I wonder what the statistics would be for Americans.
I know.
That's what I think is funny. I mean, because first of all, you have to drive in most of the parts of the country, so to walk to a park 15 minutes away, that's crazy.
We're not set up for pedestrian zones here.
No, of course not. Because we gave our country to the car company too. Yeah. What do you want, car company? More roads, less walking? By all means, corporations know the best. That was my That's what happened in the 1950s, essentially.
Somehow you have strip malls parallel to one another for as far as the eye can see, but no way to walk to any of them.
That's because
you have to park in each parking lot.
That's because General Motors literally came in and said, don't you dare put a walkway between these two strip malls. I want everyone to have to drive from point A to point B, even if it's only 3 blocks. You have to drive it. Welcome to America. That's freedom. Freedom to drive and never have to step foot outside of your car again. The American dream.
The Europeans walk and they're socialist.
That's how you get communism, is by walking. Too much walking makes communists.
What is this, a commune? So that's that. I just thought it was interesting. So I'll keep an eye on that to see how it develops. I'm curious to learn more as it goes. Yeah. So what do you want to do?
Oh, you got one more?
I do have one more.
Yeah, let's do one more.
All right, we could do one more. All right. Toxic forever chemicals about to get their first U.S. limits.
Okay.
All right.
Better late than never.
Right? I mean, why not?
How long have toxic forever chemicals been an issue? When were they first invented?
I'll get
50s.
The answer is decades.
Yeah. So go on.
All right. So just so everyone is aligned, we're all on the same page. Forever chemicals are linked to weaker immune systems in children, low birth weight, and kidney cancer. The name comes from the fact that they don't degrade in the environment. And when you consider that they've been around for decades, you can imagine we are soaking ourselves in them. In the past, they were used in nonstick pans, food packaging, firefighting foam, and probably a bunch of other things. They're now most
styrofoam. Are you going to list?
Yeah, okay. It's just everything. It's like the list was long, and I'm not going to bore everyone.
Nuclear waste isn't even in there. Nuclear waste does decay after a while, so that's not even a forever chemical.
There you go, folks.
I mean, that's how wild this is. Nuclear waste. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's better, but it's not in this category. And yet everything else is probably far more pervasive in terms of our daily usage of it. It's basically like you were saying, like the spray for, what do they call that? It's not radon, right? What's the spray? You were saying the spray can?
No, it was just nonstick pans. So whatever they're coating.
Oh, the right. Okay. The coating.
Yeah, whatever. I don't want to say it's Teflon because I don't know.
I know. Yeah. Something like that. It's nonstick, like Teflon, doesn't degrade into the environment. Interesting.
And so most of the stuff has been phased out in the US, but some do still remain. I mean, you can still get some of this stuff. And remember, they're forever. So they don't break down when you throw them out and they make their way into our water.
Whenever I get a styrofoam, and maybe I am outing myself in terms of what kind of fast delivery food I may go for at times. But whenever it comes in styrofoam, I'm like, are you joking? Who's still selling this? Why is this still happening?
The biggest pet peeve I have is when I get a delivery and they're packed in styrofoam, but it's that type when you go to take it out, it just breaks up into like 1,000 little balls.
Oh, that's right.
It's like that type of styrofoam where it's just like these little pellets.
Oh, yes, the pellets, styrofoam pellets, even worse. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
that's even
who
worse.
Does that?
Right. I mean, you're talking about like furniture, so at least you're not saying I eat like a garbage human being, but
yeah, I mean, I'm not that, but
right.
I mean, one of these standards,
right.
But no. And so they make their way into our water. No big surprise, right? You have these things compounding over decades, and it just rains and rains, and it seeps into everything. It seeps into our environment.
It's like the microplastics that's found in like fish bellies.
Oh God, yeah, everywhere. Yeah. But so it's not just that. They found it in high levels of neighborhoods that were butting against military bases, Air Force to be specific. I don't know what about that is driving it, and then manufacturing plants of all types. So yeah, it's in industry. It's in everything. Like there is just, and that's probably just what we know about. So the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, is expected to propose restrictions on harmful forever chemicals in drinking water after finding they are dangerous in amounts so small as to be undetectable. Okay? So undetectable is still super dangerous.
Yeah,
but experts say removing them will impact around 4 to 12% of water suppliers nationally, which actually I thought would be worse. The cost is about $38 billion.
Wait, hold on. What was that percentage again?
4 to 12% of water suppliers.
And it's going to cost 38
billion.
Wow. Okay. All right. It's costly.
But that's not even counting the ongoing cost of like, all right, well, you fixed it and now we got to maintain it. And the burden, what critics say, is will fall hardest on small communities with fewer resources that now need to buy these new systems and train their staff on how to use them. So there's that. Water providers are,
and that's a huge issue, by the way. That I don't think that's an issue that should be glossed over, because that's the issue with why our road systems are so bad, is because the initial cost was government subsidied without any towns considering what the ongoing cost to maintain all this road work would be. I know it's a weird connection to make, but I'm just saying that if you're complaining about potholes in your local roads, whatever is happening here, if the towns cannot afford to maintain them going onward, it just means that whatever good these things were supposed to be doing will not be done. So that's a huge issue, actually.
And I was under the assumption that, because I always hear this argument being made actually by Democrats, that certain Democratic wealthier states kick into the federal government, and a lot of those funds go into poorer red states to help supplement their economies to keep them afloat, in a sense. And
I don't know if it's as black and white as that, but sure.
So that's fine, right? I'm just saying that that's talking point from the Democratic Party. But it got me thinking, if even a shade of that is true, then why isn't the federal government just paying for the 4 to 12%? Like, why isn't it just being supplemented? If we are a country, a United States, then just because a poor community can't afford, because, whatever hand it was dealt, it just cannot afford to clean up its drinking water, do we allow Americans to be poisoned? Like, why wouldn't taxes be diverted to that?
That's a good question, Jamie. I think you ask a very valid question. I mean, taxes will get diverted to it in one way or another. Even if we do private contracts for some cleanup crews to come in and do this and maintain it, at some point the bill will get paid by the taxpayer. So taxes will go into it at some point. It doesn't matter how the government really does this. What would be nice is to do it as efficiently and cheaply as possible, and yet successfully, so we're not cutting corners, which is what a private entity might do in order to increase its profitability while helping do this cleanup. So that's always the risk you run of contracting out essential services to a private organization whose main goal is profit. Again, that's why I'm usually not in favor of that. But yeah, but at some point, no matter what's happening, no matter if the money is being, siphoned off by some non-efficient corporation, it's still, the coffers need to be replenished by the taxpayer at some level. So taxpayer money will go into this no matter what happens. It's just a matter of how much.
Okay. So now going back to that 4 to 12%, water providers are preparing for these tougher standards, and testing will undoubtedly reveal that forever chemicals are actually in communities that we don't even know yet. So that 4 to 12 can grow. But further on that point, these people this whole time have been consuming this, right? So in 2022, a little bit of history.
Well, for decades, you're saying they've been consuming it for decades, which means at this point you've affected generations of people.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? And so and to give you some like understanding of this, in 2022, the EPA. Now remember, undetectable limits. Undetectable limits are still super dangerous, right? No amount of forever chemicals are good for you. In 2022, the EPA lowered its voluntary health thresholds, right? Voluntary health thresholds.
Okay.
To levels that tests can't even detect, a fraction of a part per trillion. Okay. Not one, a fraction of a part per trillion.
All right.
In 2016, it was 70 parts per trillion. And before that, it was even higher. So it went from 70 to a fraction of one part. And that is still too high. And this whole time it's been voluntary. So you know they weren't doing it at all. So far, only local and state regulators have imposed any changes and not the federal government, which we talked about. But when this gets out, like when this becomes more well-known and this law maybe passes, I feel like it's going to create a lot more mistrust. And when communities know, because now they'll be forced to test just how much poison they've been consuming and for how long, I feel like there's already mistrust between the government and mistrust between scientific institutions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
When people feel misled about the safety of their tap water, are they going to be less likely to drink it? And then what's their alternative? They'll be forced to buy bottled water, consume more sugary drinks. And then all that, there's a whole host of like things, health issues that are associated with that. Like you're buying cheaper alternatives, which are not really that great for you. And what, you're going to have like diabetes problems skyrocketing across the country. So there's that part of it. And what was probably the most concerning was if we don't properly fund these communities, when these new standards and their costs hit, there will be trade-offs in these communities. We'll address what was it? One of the local governments were commenting on this, and they basically said, "We'll address the forever chemicals, but we won't be able to remove lead pipes, or we'll address the forever chemicals, but we won't be able to replace old water mains." Like they're going to have to pick and choose. So
that's
clearly, you know, it's our water. People need to drink it, and the cost shouldn't really be an issue when our health is concerned. But I can understand that maybe that's idealistic. Maybe this country doesn't have enough money, $38 billion to fix it.
There might be other ways to go about this, though, because I mean, I know I have a water treatment something in my house. Is there any mention of the government?
You know how expensive that is?
That's why I sounds like it might be less expensive than removing those pipes.
So you mean that a town is going to pay for the installation?
Well, no,
water treatment.
The federal government creates a massive plan to allow homeowners, which again is not, when I say homeowners, this includes landlords of buildings, a path to purchasing these types of equipment in areas where the government knows the pipes or the systems cannot actually be replaced, or the cost would be just insurmountable, or it's cost prohibitive to actually replace these things. So you find alternative solutions. No?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that if for whatever reason the cost of removing your lead pipes, fixing your burst pipes, and giving you clean water is too much to ask, that you could, quote unquote, find other ways. I just don't know what those other ways are. I mean, the idea of self-sufficient pieces of property for every lot in a town sounds cool. I think we actually talked about that as like a dream for the future when we were like, every home will be able to recycle its water and collect its own renewable energy and just be self-sustaining. And how cool would that be?
This could be a stepping stone to that future. Then, I mean, maybe we need to be thinking outside the box. You'd be thinking, doing some 4D chess here, being like, this could be a point where we start that march to self-sustainability for each home. Maybe
I would be curious to know. I don't know who would comment on it. I don't know if it would be a scientist or an economist or what have you, but the idea of self-sustained living per lot versus a grid approach, where you have a grid of pipes, a grid for power, versus each is like a closed unit in a sense, a closed circuit. I don't know.
Be the cost up front versus the cost long term, because I think when you're looking at each individual home doing this, the upfront cost is probably going to be much higher than doing something at a grid level. But if you look at
it's got to be like motors associated with that, right? Because you have like central power plants that are like the driving engine that are like pushing and pulling things through. Right. I'm making that up, but like water, electricity, whatever it is, the sewage, right? They're like doing the thing. And now if you're going to like dismantle that centralization and give it to each homeowner or building. Well, I mean,
I wouldn't, it wouldn't take one way for the other. I'm just, all I'm saying is we're not even looking everywhere. We're just talking about in the areas where the situation is so dire that, it's just not much can be done, or it's not good enough. That's where this approach, we should start looking at alternative ideas. That's all I'm thinking.
I just feel like 38 billion. I mean,
it's not a drop in a bucket, but I mean, I guess it's not the worst. What's the military budget again?
800 billion.
I'm just saying.
I mean, clean drinking water.
It should be a right. It should be a right. So
I don't know.
You try to address that right. That's all I'm saying.
This isn't bike lanes, right? I mean, this isn't some like ultra hippie thing or something. It's clean drinking water.
Yeah.
Clean drinking water. I don't know what. It's really hard to argue against that. And then
I don't think anyone is trying to
look you in the face and be like, "I'll give you the clean drinking water. I'll remove the forever chemicals, but you're going to keep the lead."
Yeah,
I don't know what to do with that.
It's messed up. I think this is where your direct, that this is where that representation matters. You find yourself in that situation as a voter. There should be someone you could hold accountable. That's the difference between.
You don't have the money. What are they going to do? The president, right? Who would allocate that money to you? If your town doesn't have the money, your county
it should be what your
doesn't have the money
working on. I mean, it should be that should be their number one agenda point. They should be talking about how much work they're doing and how they're trying to move the needle on it, I suppose.
Yeah. I don't know how much of the collective soul has to be sold in order for a rural community to get on the agenda for the federal government. But yeah, it's a sad thing. I mean, when you think about, I can't wrap my head around a fraction of one part per trillion is considered super dangerous, is going to be the new tough standard. And some of these communities, many we don't even know yet because we haven't had the requirement to test, have for decades had 70 or more parts per trillion. I mean, that's just, they've been poisoning themselves. And they probably don't even know it.
Yeah.
Because it's all voluntary anyway. And then
we have a lot of these. I mean, yeah, and there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of what was it? And
it's not. But then it's not even the only thing, because then you have like pollution from other areas, and it's just your body's just soaking this stuff in.
There's so much stuff going on.
Your water, you bathe.
We need it to be a top
yourself.
priority.
You wash your dishes. You cook with it. It's in it's water, man. It's water. It's like,
imagine a government that took the health of its population as the most important thing that it should be concerned with, as opposed to, I don't know, something abroad, some war abroad. I mean, but this is how populists. I mean, this is how people like Trump get so much momentum, is because they say, "Hey, your town sucks. I'm gonna help fix it. I don't know how, but I'm gonna help fix it." So, it's sad. There's not much else to say about it. You're right. That sucks.
Yeah, I mean, the Republican talking point. Your town's suffering. Your town's suffering. I don't know what the solution is, but I'm pretty sure it's at the southern border. Like, what is their solution to anything? It's never something.
Well, they're saying it sucks because government sucks, and if you allow,
they are the government. I don't. I hate that argument. They are the government. Well, that's the most absurd rationale, and I hate when people buy into that. They are the government.
Yeah, well, they're there to dismantle the government.
It's like good cop, bad cop. Except they're blaming the precinct. It's like the most bizarre.
Really. That was actually a really good analogy. It is good cop, bad cop, but they're both cops.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're both cops.
Yeah,
but then the bad cop, or I don't know, the good cop, I don't even know which one it is. They're blaming like the institution, and they're like, man, these cops am I right?
That's right. Yeah, my
Like,
hands
dude, you're a cop, dude. Like,
my hands
I don't
are
know what to
tied.
say.
I wish I could help you out, buddy, but
These people who went to cop school, went to the academy, these elites, these elite cops who went to the academy.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like the most bizarre thing. And then they buy into it and then nothing gets done because they're fighting against the system that they should be engaging with to take care of them.
Oh, well, we know this one. That's a story as old as time. Talk about that all the time, especially with education. Mm-hmm. Yeah, your schools suck because you keep defunding them.
Yeah, it sucks when those government programs are underfunded and they underperform. I wish we could do something about that. I wish
you could do something about that. Yeah, basically.
All right. Well, that's that.
All right. Well, on that note, the cheeriest
drink up. Cheers, everyone.
I promise it gets better. There's more Diablo coming. The game will be out in a few months. Just put your head down.
Full version that Antoine pays for.
Yeah, that's right. Just put your head down and play some Diablo 4.
Get a cool glass of tap water, Diablo beta.
That's right.
And enjoy it while it lasts.
That should be the motto of everything in life. With that, is that Jay? Where can they find us? Is that
do
you want to do
folks,
that at the end?
Yeah, we do that still. Yeah. So, folks, you can find us on YouTube. We got new content every week, so please like and subscribe. We're also on Twitter, and you can find us on every podcast platform.
And with that, my dear friends, Retraction out.